Madurai, where power learned to listen. Madurai did not announce itself with walls or towers. It revealed itself gradually, like a thought that grew heavier the longer one carried it. At dawn, the city was already awake, not with urgency but with intent. Oil lamps were extinguished one by one, their smoke lingering in doorways. Merchants swept stone thresholds clean. Palm leaves were stacked carefully, tied with fiber, waiting to be read or rewritten. Sound traveled differently here. Conversations carried, words lingered. The streets leading toward the Pandya court filled slowly, not in procession but in convergence. Poets arrived on foot from distant villages. Traders paused their carts to listen to fragments of debate already unfolding. Madurai did not separate public life from intellectual life. It braided them together. To walk through the city was to overhear arguments about prices, verses, justice, and kings, sometimes all at once. At the center stood the Sangam hall. People had gathered here for generations, long before the current king's father had ruled. The hall did not belong to the crown sat inside it. When King Nedunchezhiyan returned from his northern campaign, the city welcomed him with drums and garlands, but without excess. Victory was acknowledged, not sanctified. Inside the Sangam hall, celebration gave way to scrutiny. There was no raised throne. The king sat forward, visible, reachable by words. Poets rose in turn. One spoke of restraint, of fields left untouched and civilians spared. Another, younger and less careful, circled decisions taken after the fighting, delayed relief, judgments delivered too quickly. The hall tightened. Guards shifted their stance. No one interrupted. Nedunchezhiyan listened. When the assembly ended, a minister followed him into the shaded corridor behind the hall. The verse was harsh, the minister said. The people heard it. They would have heard worse, the king replied, washing his hands, if it were true and left unsaid. And if tomorrow the poets turn against you? The king paused. Then tomorrow, he said, I will have learned something today. This was not rehearsed humility. The Pandya kings were trained from an early age in exposure. To rule Madurai was to sit where words could reach you unfiltered. A ruler who could not endure scrutiny was quietly advised to endure retirement instead. It was on the third morning after this assembly that a palm leaf appeared on the stone steps outside the Sangam hall. No one saw who placed it there. The verse was short, written in a steady, confident hand. Its meter was precise, its imagery unmistakably local. It spoke of fields promised relief after war, of waiting that stretched longer than patience, of justice that arrived but late. The king was never named. By midday, the verse was being recited in the market. By evening, it had split opinion, not over its truth but over its origin. An unsigned verse unsettled Madurai. A poet stood by his words, accepted praise and endured consequence. Anonymity disrupted that balance. Inside the Sangam hall, voices stayed low. This is not the work of a youth, one poet said. And not of an outsider, another replied. Someone who knows the court, a third added quietly. The palm leaf reached the king before dusk. If the Sangam accepts this, a minister said, it becomes memory. And if it rejects it, the king replied, it becomes fear. The next day's session was unscheduled, yet the hall filled early. The elders debated briefly and decided narrowly. The verse would be preserved, not attributed to a poet, nor read as an accusation, but recorded simply as a voice of the city. No search followed. No punishment was ordered. Within days, compensation moved faster. Officials appeared sooner in outlying villages. No announcement was made, no admission offered. The verse had done its work without claiming credit. Madurai returned to its rhythm. At dusk, lamps were lit again. Debates resumed in courtyards and on rooftops. Palm leaves were rewritten, amended by argument. The city did not sleep easily. It reflected. This was its discipline and its burden. Nedunchezhiyan did not attempt to master Madurai. He allowed it to correct him. In return, the city granted him something more enduring than loyalty. Historically, Nedunchezhiyan was not a passive ruler sheltered by poets. Sangam records remember him as a Pandya king who defended his realm decisively, most notably in battles against northern incursions, including the campaign remembered at Talayalanganam. He was capable of force when required, and his victories secured Madurai's position in a landscape of competing powers. Yet, it is not his wars that dominate Sangam memory. What endures most strongly is the cultural discipline he preserved and strengthened. Under his reign, the Sangam assemblies continued to function with independence. Poets spoke without fear, and the habit of public scrutiny remained intact. In choosing not to weaken these institutions for the comfort of unquestioned rule, he allowed Madurai's intellectual life to mature rather than submit. This balance between military competence and cultural restraint is why Nedunchezhiyan survives in history not merely as a Pandya ruler, but as a king shaped by the Sangam rather than one who bent it to his will. His reign marked a period when power and poetry remained in dialogue, and when authority learned that its greatest endurance lay not in conquest but in consent remembered. Madurai did not promise immortality. It promised remembrance if one could endure it. And so here, power learned to listen.